What is up, nerds? It's Pat from the Nerd You're Looking For podcast. And today I want to talk about something that I think I heard about a month ago, but I just assumed it was some crazy rumor that couldn't possibly be true. But before we get started, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, ding that bell, smash that like button. That helps us out a lot. So that crazy rumor that I referred to earlier is the fact that GameStop is seriously considering selling comic books at their stores now. You heard me right. GameStop is thinking about selling comic books. One more time for the people in the back. GameStop is going to sell comic books now. And that rumor was confirmed by their Director of Customer Products, I believe is his title. It's something along those lines. And I'm not going to read his quote verbatim, but essentially what it boils down to is they figured out that gamers might also read comic books. Now, I don't know how long GameStop has been a company, but the fact that it took them this long to figure out that gaming nerds are also mostly comic book nerds too. Duh. And honestly, on the surface, this seems like a good idea. I mean, it seems really obvious that gaming nerds would also like comic books. But when you actually stop and think about it, it's a terrible idea. When I first heard about this, it reminded me of the great philosopher Ron Swanson, who said, "Don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing." And let's be honest, GameStop still hasn't quite perfected the art of actually selling video games. Now, I'm not going to go in particulars of how they suck, but they screw their consumer time in and time out. If you want to learn more about how they just completely bone us all the time, check out this content creator that I'm a huge fan of, Back Pocket Game Reviews. I'll leave a link to his channel in the video description. He was an ex-manager at GameStop for, I believe, about 5 years, and he has a lot of just crazy stories about how awful working at GameStop is and how just a terrible company they are. So a company that's supposed to sell us games, instead of getting better at selling games, they've just decided to pick up another thing to sell us. GameStop is dying. Now, a lot of it's their fault. Let's be honest. If you do check out Back Pocket Game Reviews, he outlines it beautifully. They do a terrible job at running their company. But not all of it's their fault. It's just that physical media in general is dying. People don't want physical copies of things anymore. Just ask Blockbuster. People want to stream things. People want to binge things. And I'm right there with you. I stream. I buy digital copies of things. So I'm just as bad as everybody else. I do have a bit of a collector in me, and I do like collecting video games. I do like collecting Blu-rays. But I also don't care that much that if something's cheaper online and I could just get a digital copy of it, I'm going to do that. So GameStop is dying. You know what else is dying? Comic books and comic book shops. I'm actually one of the few lucky ones that actually has two really good comic book shops in the city that I live in. They're both great, but they don't just do comic books. You can't survive now if you just do comic books. Like Comic Quest does a lot of tabletop gaming and has a lot of tournaments and that kind of stuff. And I think that's what kind of keeps them afloat. And Secret Headquarters, they have comic books, but they also have retro video games. They also have an arcade. They have a VIP lounge where you can stream Fortnite. So there's things other than comic books that kind of keep the doors open for these comic book shops. So when you think about it, GameStop's genius idea of helping them come back from the dead, essentially, is to add a product that itself is pretty much dead. And I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but honestly, who's going to go to GameStop for comic books? I feel like I'm their demographic because I'm a huge gamer. I'm constantly buying new games all the time, and I'm a huge comic book guy. I go to the shop every week and I pick out my books. I love it. But let's be honest, when you go to GameStop, is there a ton of room for comic books? Like, how much comic books are they going to sell? Yeah, maybe they'll have a couple of Marvel books, maybe they'll have a couple of DC books, but I read Marvel, DC, IDW, I read Image, Aftershock, all these other comic books, all these indie publishers, I read as well, and I go to a comic book shop to get those. So essentially, even if I wanted to, I don't go to GameStop anymore ever, but even if I wanted to, because I would be their core demographic for this thing that they're going to do, I would then still have to make a trip to the comic book shop. Why would I do that? That makes no sense. These stores don't have room to put in enough comic books to make it worth it for these comic book nerds who are also gamers to kind of save them a trip. So this idea just reeks of desperation and honestly stupidity, because it literally took me 2 minutes to think of all of the reasons why this was a bad idea. But of course, that's just my humble opinion. If you nerds have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it in the comment section below. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, ding that bell, smash that like button. That helps us out a lot, especially being a tiny, tiny YouTube channel. We need all the help that we can get, so we definitely appreciate that. And of course, as I do with all of our videos, I will put all the links to everything else, including the podcast, the nerd you're looking for, in the video description below. For Patrick Kuhn, I am the nerd you're looking for. Take it easy, nerds.